Got a 2004 Beetle diesel TDI with a BEW engine code, and it's been to the dealership, and the dealership recommended a new wiring harness to the tune of $2,000. I think the customer was going to do it, but the dealership said they couldn't get the wiring harness. It has an injector code and a misfire. Misfire doesn't happen very often, they said. They hardly even notice it. Let's do some checks on it, see what it needs. Just going to show the auto scan on this one. The trouble code here, 18074 PD injector unit, cylinder number 1, N240 P1666. And P1666 cylinder number 1, P0301 misfire. I pulled the battery out to inspect the harness, as some PD TDIs get harness damage due to the loom covering. Plastic loom covering has sharp edges on the inside and it'll bite into the wires, the injector wires and the cam and crank wires, glow plug wires maybe, and it usually happens in this area between the cylinder head and over here underneath the battery. So we update those with some cloth tape so that it don't do that, but there was no damage on this one, so we'll have to get out the scope. I put the boost box in there to run the car, and I assume you can hear that. The engine's shaking pretty good. Anyway, it's misfiring pretty good. Okay, so we have our inductive amp clamp. It's a 60 amp clamp, but it has a 20 amp scale also. We're going to use it on the 20 amp scale. I'm going to put it on one of the injectors that is working good, so we'll have a known good pattern. And we have a pattern already. There it is flashing across the screen there. We will select for our probe the 60 amp current clamp on 20 amp mode. -5 to 20 amps should cover it. And then we'll put a trigger on. Repeat. And there's our pattern. Change the scaling just a bit. And there's our pattern. Let's drag the cursor down to see how many amps it's drawing. You see there it's about 16, and that's its peak, and then it drops down here and controls it for that amount. It drops back down to ground. We'll move it now to our bad one. See the motor still misfiring like crazy. When the signal stops, this software seems to freeze the pattern on the screen. So that is not our current pattern. Notice it's not moving or fluctuating any. So we have to hit spacebar to get it to run again. And at this point we have nothing. This is on our, once again, the number 1 where the problem is. There's nothing. Move it back to our known good. And instantly we have a pattern there. You guys can see it's fluctuating because it's a true pattern. And then we'll move back to the number 1. Hit our spacebar a couple times, and we have nothing. No amperage flowing through. Let's try our other ones. This is our one, I don't know which is which, I just know it's a working one. That's a good pattern. That's back into that one there. working. And back to the number 1. And a frozen pattern, so hit the spacebar a couple times. Nothing. So what's the cause of no amperage through there? Is it the wiring? Is it the injector? Is it the wiring underneath the valve cover? Let's do some voltage tests. Okay, I'm trying to take some voltage readings with the scope on our misfiring injector, and I have readings here that I don't understand. That might be logical, but that's the ground side of the injector. I guess it's possible these injectors are controlled on the positive and the ground by the computer. One of the cool features of the Picoscope, though, is right here inside the file menu. You can do waveform library browser, and then you can search, and I'm going to put in Volkswagen. And I can put in the year range. I know this engine was used, this PD style of motor was used from 2004 to 2006 here in the United States. And I could put in diesel, search just for diesel schematic or diesel waveforms. I could put in number of cylinders, search for 4-cylinder waveforms, but I know this engine's a 1.9 and almost exclusively the 1.9 here in the United States was a diesel. I'm just going to put in 1.9. I hit enter, it'll search. Then we look for the injector pattern. And there's a nice waveform. Shows the amperage draw and the voltage. Injector voltage, injector current. But I'm kind of understanding those. I want the ground side, see what's up with the ground side. Let's see if there's any more. And there's one that's got the injector amperage, injector voltage, and the ground side. Injector current, injector earth, injector voltage. But what exactly is going on with that ground side, which is the red trace? Amperage seems pretty clear cut. The computer controls the amperage to a peak, and then it holds to this point, almost like a peak and hold gasoline injector. The positive side seems real clear cut. The computer gives it 12 volts, holds 12 volts there, and then regulates it with a pulsing action. It's down there. The scale is down here. I'll pull this up on the scope to show you, but because this picture isn't very viewable. But luckily, you can just click the open waveform button, and it'll pull up on the scope, make everything much easier to see. But anyway, we know this is a known good, so let's hope ours looks this way. Okay, so let's escape out of that, and then we'll click our open waveform button. And that puts that waveform in the scope software, which you can get to by minimizing, which it didn't do. There it goes. It says loading. And much more easy to read on the full-size screen here. So we'll move this red one up. Move the green one down out of the way. And let's see what's... Go up to the corner here and move the measuring line down. It says negative 1.66 volts. I'm pretty sure that means... Move it up just a little bit more. Yeah, that's basically 0 volts there. And then see what this voltage spike here is in the middle. And that's 33.88 volts. So is that just an inductive spike? But anyway, that's our known good. Let's see what we got. So I figure if one injector is drawing no amperage, that if I did like a parade of the injector patterns by putting the amp probe on the common wire that all the injectors are from, which is this yellow and tan and yellow, that I would see 3 patterns, 1, 2, 3, and a missing one, which I have. And in order to understand it, I decided to back probe the crank sensor. So now I have a crank sensor pattern on here, and every two of those indexes is 1 revolution of the crankshaft. So we obviously have a missing cylinder number 1 here, no amperage draw whatsoever. Let's clear the code and see what happens. Well, actually, let's just turn it off, turn it back on, and see if it still misfires. Seems really smooth now. No engine jumping around. Is that and there's our pattern. We've lost our crank signal. Let me wiggle the connection there. And lo and behold, drawing amperage again. So the circuit code triggers and the computer stops putting amperage through that injector. It's going to be really hard to catch the actual problem because what we've been looking at is just the computer's reaction to the problem. Recently we did a video on an injector trouble code and I lost the footage of the fix. So I have another one here with an injector code. This is a BRM, the other one was a BEW, but basically the same layout, the same type of injector harness, same type of injectors. And this one I'm going to show the fix on because I lost the footage on the other one. You release the plug in on the injector by going underneath it with a scribe through a window here and then lifting up, and it unplugs easily. That's the window you're going through, and you stick the scribe in there and you can pry it to unplug it right there. That's an injector. Can you back off a little bit? Okay. To release the pin out of this connector, you work this up by prying in here. Those 2 pieces right on the tip there are the lock tabs. And then after you get that up, that does have lock tabs on that plastic door there, so it won't come out unless you fold that up. But then you also need to go inside here with a electrical pin removal tool, and Push that down in there, and that should release the Okay, it took me a while, but I was able to get it out. Make sure you put the wires back on the correct side of the connector. But if you look inside there, that is opened up and loose fitting. And you can try it on the pin of the injector. And that fits really loose on there. So give it a little squeeze. And here's the tab on the back side that we were releasing, and I just give that a little push back up to where it still has the strength to hold. This one looks like it got folded over some.
They don't come out very easy. I'm sure there's some better way, but I don't think so. Well, if I had really could be.
Okay, it took some work to reshape that, but I got it back into shape. Yeah, I just need to reinsert it in the connector in the right position. Well, there we go, back together. Plugged in and good to go. Man, am I tired. It's about 8:30 here. Stayed late to finish up a timing belt for a customer. I wanted to discuss the diagnosis on the Beetle with the injector trouble code Tdi 2004, and I lost the footage of me continuing to work on the car and fixing it and stuff. Luckily the second vehicle came in that I could show the fix on, but we did have some footage of me messing with the scope and looking at this, looking at that, basically just scratching my head and looking confused. The footage wouldn't have helped us anyway, but how I ended up actually diagnosing the problem was just through experience. I actually had an injector code years ago, more than 2 years ago, and it was a pin drag problem. So that was always in the back of my mind as I was trying to diagnose that one. But I don't remember how I diagnosed the first one. Maybe there was an internet post or a forum post, and someone else had mentioned pin drag. I wish I knew how to convey, how to find a problem like that with a scope, but I don't think there's any way. Now, I wish I would have put a parade pattern out there and synced off of the number one or some, so we know which one was which. Maybe there would be a reduction in amperage on one that there wouldn't be on the others. Maybe if we hooked to voltage, we could see the voltage drop out. On an interesting side note, I went to the Vision KC show. It's an automotive trade show with high-tech training there. And I ran into Keith from New Level Diagnostics. Some of you might see his channel. He's friends with Ivan and Eric O. I met him, and if you want to see more diagnosis videos, like and subscribe. I might have some Mini Cooper stuff coming up, and take a look at my website, www.kansascitytdi.com.